is our generation has been lied to. Our generation has been told that capitalism is the end of history, that this system is all there is. But the fact is, actually, we can do much better than capitalism. We can do much better than capitalism, and I encourage people to check out Revolution newspaper to find out about the new synthesis of revolution, of socialism, of communism that Baba Bacon has developed, because a whole other world is possible, and it's up to us to make it real.
Would you replace it with communism?
Anarchy.
Primitivism.
What is that? Like hunter-gatherer?
Sure, and early farm life, but yeah, primitivism.
But you know how many people are gonna die?
And I mean, this might sound terribly cold, but it's a fact of life. Everything dies.
Capitalism is killing this country. It's killing people. We have to look at new alternatives. Thinking out of the box.
You're a classist? Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I don't really have any sympathy for people with you know, obscene amounts of money. You know, I mean, if you're.
So where do you draw that line, obscene?
You know, honestly, anything over $200,000 is like no one spends that amount of money on anything. That's ridiculous. Landlord's rich. I know that. She owns a lot of property all over Oakland.
And you think that's a bad thing?
I'd say eat her.
My viewpoint, I think that, my personal viewpoint is that capitalism is immoral. I think it's a system based on greed. I think that in order for the 1% to do well, they must oppress the other 99%, and that's against my basic values, and that's what that system is built upon. So
we're trying to accomplish the demolition of capitalism.
What do you think it's going to take to achieve the goal?
This kind of thing on a massive scale. Not just here in Chicago, but throughout this country and throughout the world.
Do you think it's going to require collapsing the American government?
Personally, I think so, because I feel that, the resistance against this will be overwhelming. It'll be very strong, and it'll be intransigent and relentless.
And don't you think, in terms of anti-capitalist revolutionary struggle today, is simply irresponsible? Everybody who cares about Oakland, about San Francisco, about the United States, about the world, needs to be anti-capitalist today. And not any kind of anti-capitalist. We need also to refuse the state. We need to say enough with the old left ideas about taking the power of the state, about going to the city hall, about making demands. We can make demands, but in a very different way, because we are revolutionaries.
Well, I mean, I obviously believe that my ideas are persuasive enough and beneficial enough to society that people should subscribe to them at the conclusions of their own reason and their own sense of right and wrong, but frankly, some people don't, and yes.
And at the end of the day, you'll use force against those people.
I believe that it's the role of the government to use force.
So you won't do it yourself, you'll hire someone else to do it, basically.
That's what a government is.
I think part of the issue is that a lot of the people that are here are in fact anarchists, are in fact revolutionaries, and putting a revolutionary change into political terms is very difficult to do, because we're trying to get away from all the problems, and we don't really want to fix them. It's revolution, not reform.
One of the speakers said the solution is non-violent movement. No, my friend. That's it. So, ultimately, bourgeoisie won't go without violent means. Revolution. We have the revolution, yes.
You're okay with some actor coming up and saying, hey, you make too much money, and you need to be prepared to part with some of it. If you don't, you should be beheaded. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. The answer is yes.
We'll give you a satisfying answer. What is this? It's a bunch of people that are in a park. Mad. We're all mad, but we're not doing it like when if it was up to me, these buildings will fall down. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. Like, you might get mad. People will get mad. Like, cops can't be mad. I'm going to say something. I wouldn't give a if 9/11 happened 911 more times. You understand? I don't give a You understand? I don't give a I hope 9/11 happens again right now. And
this is really only one answer to these corporate thugs. Go yourself.
Ain't no more talking. They got guns, we got bottles. They got bricks, we got rocks. Let's see what they got. They got missiles, we got bottles. I want them to make that decision so they can see. In a few days, you're going to see what a Molotov cocktail can do to Macy.
I do say that I am for the return of the guillotine, and that is for the worst of the guilty.
You're singing to the choir on this show. We've been advocating the guillotine for years now.
Oh, well, fantastic. We think alike in many ways.
That's one side of what people want, right? Because that's not the only thing people want. They also want to take the banker out of his, tower and string him up in the public square.
The Occupy Wall Street crowds. I set him straight. He was from the former Soviet Union, and here he is.
And when you abolish capitalism, what are you going to replace it with, I wonder?
Socialism.
Really?
Yeah.
And what do you think is going to happen under socialism?
Well, we wouldn't have people unemployed.
Really?
We wouldn't have people hungry.
No kidding.
We wouldn't have 5% of the world's population.
Really?
25% of
What's the difference between North Korea and South Korea, I wonder?
People in North Korea.
What's the difference between North Korea and South Korea?
The workers in North Korea get paid.
Get paid. Oh my gosh.
Do you believe the stupidity there?
Oh my
The
gosh.
workers in North Korea get paid.
Did you read the story?
Really?
I haven't even been able to bring myself to it because I was reading in Second Kings about. There's a story that really bothered me for a couple of weeks of when the king is up on the wall and he says what happened? This woman is wailing and she says. There's a woman, and we have no food. And she said, let us eat your son today, and tomorrow we'll eat mine. And she said, so we boiled my son, and in that time, overnight, she hid her son. And it's this horrible, horrible scene of just starvation. And it's been bothering me because hunger is coming. Hunger is coming.
And hunger has been here already in North Korea for a long time.
Yeah. And hunger is just coming, and it may not come like that. Hopefully it won't come like that here in the United States, but it will come like that. And it's already that way in some parts of the world. But it will sweep. When this system collapses and you can't move food, you can't grow food the way we do. When this system breaks down, massive starvation is coming for parts of the world, and it's really been weighing on me. And so I've read that I don't know how many times lately, and I go to the Blaze. I think it's on Friday, and there is this story about this woman in North Korea. Did you read it?
Yeah.
I couldn't even read it.
It's unbelievable.
I couldn't even read it. I didn't want to.
It is horrific.
Tell the story.
She escaped. She spent, let's see, she's 41 years old. I believe she spent 28 years in a North Korean prison camp. It's one of the relocation camps where they re-educate. And her entire family was taken because her grandfather, I believe the story goes, said something wrong against the state. She said her grandfather made a mistake. Well, it wouldn't be a mistake in a free society. So they took her entire family. Some of them went to mining camps. Others went to these prison camps. The conditions were so bad in these North Korean prison camps that she said she witnessed often mothers killing, cooking, and eating their children.
This is not, and it's not isolated to
And
North
this is
Korea.
not isolated to North Korea. And this is what this Russian is trying to do. In fact, he references the cannibalism in North Korea. And they have no idea about any of this. None. They're totally clueless, apparently.
I want to put a show together, right to Tiffany. I want to put a show together next week of Soviets, former Soviets.
That'd be compelling.
People who have seen it. I'd like to find somebody who has escaped North Korea. I mean, and can recently knows about North Korea, and do 2 hours. I just want to sit around round table, maybe 6 or 8 of them, and I want to hear their stories. It's time for people to hear the stories. They don't know what. If you are our age, you grew up and you know what communism means. Our children, we never taught it to them. We never taught it to them. You know, you look at the difference between Hitler and the way he's remembered, and the way that Mao and Stalin are remembered. You hear about the mass death of Hitler, but you don't hear about the mass death from Stalin, and you don't hear about the mass death of Mao. You just don't hear it.
We covered that on Fox in a documentary, and we talked to a professor who is at Rutgers, and he's Ukrainian, a big expert on the starvation, the mass starvation there. And he said the same thing. He talked to people who are still living in the Ukraine today that witnessed mothers eating their own children to survive. 7 million people died in a year there. I mean, and this
is
a year. In a year. I mean, think
Hitler,
about this.
Think of this. Think of this. Why don't you know about the Hungarian starvation? Or the Ukrainian starvation. What is it called? It's oh geez, it's been so long since I. Yeah, I know. But the Ukrainian year of famine, and it was intentionally done and enforced. What was it?
Holodomor.
Yes. Yeah. Never heard of the Holodomor. Never. I didn't know what it was. 7 million people. Put this into perspective. 6 million Jews were killed in the ovens by Germany. Over how many years? 7 million people were killed by the Soviets in 1 year.
Children would go into fields to try to steal food because they were starving, and they'd shoot them. I mean, and this is, I mean, they brutalized this country.
The first thing they did was the Soviets came in and they took the food out of the houses. They went and they collected all of the cans of food. Anything you had, they took it. They took it because they would not fold into the Soviet system. And they were, if I'm not mistaken, first the farmers weren't growing enough and shipping enough to the Soviets.
They kept raising the quotas and raising the quotas and raising the quotas, making it impossible for them to...
Right, and they said, we're starving, and we're not going to do it anymore. You're killing our people, you're killing our land, we're not going to do it anymore. And so Stalin sent his troops in and took all of the food out of the houses, and then posted guards around the farms. And if you went in to steal any food, to take any of the food that you spent your life growing, they shot you. 7 million people starved to death for the good of the Soviet Union. No one wants to talk about that. Communism, we won't have 5% unemployment. Do you know that Robespierre, and in the end, the glorious revolution for the people, they shot people to lower the unemployment rate. Too many people unemployed. Well, let's go take the old, the infirm, the troublemakers, and shoot them. And they did, because it would reduce the unemployment problems. It would reduce the hunger problems. When you listen to the people at Occupy Wall Street, you heard the woman we played on GBTV. There's this woman who said, you know what, we just have to go back to a farming kind of system. And we shouldn't have all this technology. We'll go back to a farming style system. The reporter said, do you know how many millions will die? People can't farm in the cities. They can't. You can't do that.
You can't produce enough food with those old methods to feed the people.
Do you know how many millions will die? Quote. Well, you have to get used to that. Death is a part of life. That's who these people are. That's who progressives are. If you haven't done your homework on the history of the progressives, if you don't understand that, you don't know what we're up against. If you don't understand what communist revolutionaries are, you don't understand what we're up against. If you don't understand, in Florida, we have a judge saying he will not challenge Sharia law. If Sharia law can coexist in Florida. If you don't understand what Sharia law is, and that there is no moderate Sharia law, then you don't know what we're up against. And may God forget that you were my countrymen.